Welcome to the Mama Making Podcast, a space for moms figuring it out in real time. This show is here to help you feel a little less alone in the mess and magic of motherhood. If that sounds like your kind of vibe, make sure to follow the show, share it with a friend, and keep showing up, exactly as you are.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mama Making Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica. If you're new, welcome. If you're not new, then welcome back. Today, I'm excited to have Kate Scholtes on the podcast. She is a mom and founder of Your Behind-the-Scenes BFF, where she helps women recognize the skills developed through motherhood that translate into meaningful, flexible work. A former teacher turned entrepreneur, Kate's work centers on helping moms build work that honors their lives, intuition, and capacity without disconnecting from the season they are in. Welcome, Kate. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
So tell us a little bit more about you, who you are, where you're from, whatever you're comfortable to share.
Yeah, I feel like this is always the hardest part. It's like, oh, tell us about yourself, right?
Yeah. Where do I start? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I am a mom to two little boys. One just turned 5. My oldest just turned 5. And then I have a 3-year-old. So I was in the 2 under 2 trenches there for a little bit. Starting to feel like we're kind of like coming out on the other side, can see the light.
Coming out of the woods now.
Yeah, literally. And right now we live in Idaho. We actually just moved to Idaho. Gosh, it was in April of 2025. So about like 9-ish months ago, I think, if my math's correct. And then we actually were in like an apartment for a few months as our house was getting built. And so we didn't move into our house until August. So it kind of feels like it's been a lot shorter than it has been. But we moved here from Arizona and are so happy to be out of the summers that we had in Phoenix. But now, we're experiencing our first winter. And so that's like a whole different experience, even though it is actually, which I know this is kind of the case across the country, it's very dry. We haven't had any snow, which is very interesting. But I'm a teacher turned entrepreneur. So I got my master's in education, thought I was going to be a classroom teacher the rest of my life. And then I got into it. And my second year teaching, I was like, this just like can't be it. And I had this kind of moment of like, is this really what I want to do the rest of my life? And is there something else out there for me and all that kind of stuff? I'm actually 3rd generation entrepreneur. My grandma is an entrepreneur. My mom is an entrepreneur. And then I am as well. And so I feel like it was kind of always in the back of my mind or like in my blood, I guess, to start a business. And I always kind of had these like little side hustles here and there, but nothing that I really landed on and took seriously until that moment when I was like, gosh, I just don't think I can do this the rest of my life. And then that shifted again when I became a mom, which I'm excited to talk about today, because I think it looked very different from being an entrepreneur before I was a mom. And then when I became a mom, it started to look completely different again. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Yeah. I'd love to get right into it. So you stopped teaching and decided to go full into entrepreneurship prior to having kids. What did that kind of look like for you in terms of deciding what your capacity is and what you were able to take on and do while you didn't have kids?
Yeah. So I actually started in network marketing. That was my very first business, back in 2017. And I had actually started kind of just as a customer of the company and then was sharing about it on social media. And so kind of accidentally started a business, I guess you could say. And then that is what allowed me to leave teaching. I did that full time for about 4 years. Until 2020 is when I started to kind of feel, 2020 is when I got pregnant with my son. We had gone through infertility and had this, I feel like once I got pregnant with him and like 2020, everything was just crazy and wild. Like I think everyone can relate to like everything kind of changed for a lot of us in 2020. And so I had him at the end of 2020 and I just started to feel like this isn't in alignment anymore. Like I don't want to be constantly posting on social media. I don't want to constantly be like putting my life out there for people to scrutinize, to be fair. And I just wasn't interested kind of in being like forward facing at that time. And I wanted to like protect like my family and like hold it close. Like it felt very like sacred and like near and dear to me, especially after everything we had gone through. And so after I had my son, like literally the first thing that came out of my mouth, which actually the first thing was like, oh my gosh, he's so cute, because he was so cute. But the second thing was I looked at my husband and I was just like, nothing else matters anymore. Like I'll do whatever it takes to like build a life for my son. And like I said, it just wasn't what I was doing wasn't in alignment anymore. I was working all the time. Like I had no boundaries when it came to work. With my business, I was constantly on my phone. I was constantly like sharing content, which was basically my life. It was kind of like the influencer-esque era. And I was just over it, to be quite honest. And so I started to kind of feel this pull, kind of his first year of life, but I was making a substantial amount of income, and my husband had actually left law enforcement and was working with me for a while. And then he got like a part-time gig with golf in like the golf industry. Cause at this time we lived in Arizona. And so it was like, gosh, my family's like relying on this income. I can't just like pivot and like stop what I'm doing and start something new. And so it took me a while to kind of figure out what that next step looked like. And then in 2021 is when I started to think like, I think I could maybe be a virtual assistant. Like this was something that I had been thinking about because I loved being behind the scenes in business. I had a VA with my current business, and I actually wanted to do more of what she was doing and less of what I had to do. And so I was like, okay, this could be like really good for me because I can do this like when my son is napping. I can do it after bedtime. Like it'd be really flexible. But again, it was like this leap of faith that like it would work out and I could pivot and like I wouldn't have to sacrifice this income and all that kind of stuff because I didn't want to go back to teaching. That was like my main thing that I was like, this isn't the right fit anymore, but I don't want to go back to the classroom. And so then in early 2022 is when I decided to start Your Behind-the-Scenes BFF as a virtual assistant. Actually, at that time, my son was like 17 months old. I was about 6 months pregnant with my second, which you could argue is like the worst time to start a business, but also it like lit a fire under me that I was like, I gotta get this go. Yeah, or it's the best. And so it's like, I was like, okay, we're gonna do this. We're gonna get it launched. Like it's gonna be perfect. I actually ended up like totally deleting like my former Instagram account that I had built, like all this kind of stuff, totally starting from scratch. And that's kind of where it started. And so I just started helping business owners behind the scenes with their businesses. And I was booked out really quickly, like within a week or two of just talking with people and letting them know, like, hey, I'm going to start doing this. Like, if you know of anyone, like, would you mind sending them my way? And then it happened to be like they actually needed someone. And so it was just this like word of mouth kind of referral based at first. And then it just grew from there. And that's when, people started to ask. I was kind of sharing my journey of like starting my VA business, and people started to ask, like, how are you doing that? And like, how could I get started and all this stuff? And so I was like, oh, I could use my background in education to create a course. Courses are a thing. Like I feel like it was missing in the marketplace. Had Googled my way to kind of figuring out what to do with like the VA stuff. And so I created a course basically based on what I had learned and kind of shortcutting it for other people so they didn't have to like spend as much time Googling like I had to, or YouTubing, or kind of trial and erroring it. And so that launched in the summer of 2022. And that was like right before I had my son. And since then we've helped like over 500 women through the program. We've connected hundreds of business owners through VAs that have gone through our program. And so it's been just like this really cool journey, and we're coming up on 4 years of it. And yeah, that's kind of the cliff notes, the long and the short of it of the journey.
That's so incredible. I would love to chat more about, you were talking about alignment. And for me, I started entrepreneurship after having a child. And so obviously you got to experience both worlds of like, let's do this, I'm in it, let's go for it. And it was, I'm sure the intention was different than it was when you launched your second business. But I think alignment is so huge. And I didn't really understand what it meant until I started deciding like, okay, what is an alignment for me and what isn't? And how do I maneuver what my life looks like now versus what it's going to look like when I have a kid, or like as our family grows, what is that going to look like? I would love to hear how it differed for you in terms of what aligned for you when you started listening to your intuition on alignment, what all that looks like.
Yeah, it's a great question because I think back to it and I'm like, I just didn't know what I didn't know. And it was that moment of like, wow, like truly nothing else matters anymore except this little human that I'm now in charge of keeping alive and raising and all of this stuff. And I think it really helped me figure out like what wasn't important. And with my previous business, accolades were like a huge thing, right? Like it was like we worked so hard to get like noticed or, I mean, grow your following or have these like titles or accolades or whatever it might be. And I just didn't care about that anymore. Like it was like a switch that happened overnight where I was like, this is dumb. Like it doesn't even matter. Like, all that matters is that I am able to like be the healthiest version of myself to take care of my family. Like that is what matters most to me. And like have like strong relationships with my family, with like my friends, whatever it might be. And so, things that used to motivate me, because I would still say I'm still like a pretty competitive person. Like I've always been, in competitive sports or I love a challenge. Like it's probably also the ADHD in me that I just love to go after that kind of stuff. But it didn't motivate me anymore, like to try to go after these things that felt so arbitrary. I also really started to feel like I needed more boundaries, and kind of in that world, there wasn't boundaries. It was very much like that hustle culture and like girl boss era and like all of that. And I was like, no, like I actually don't want to work all the time. I actually want to like have these boundaries and not be on calls in the evenings or not work on the weekends or feel like I have to like push at the end of every month. Like it was just exhausting. And so it just wasn't it yeah, it just felt very out of alignment. The things that I felt like I took kind of the rose-colored glasses off a little bit and was like, well, like all these things that we're told we should care about or we um like need to be working towards, like that's not what I want success to look like. And so it's been cool because now I've been able to build a business that has been very supportive of my life versus my life kind of surrounding it, which is the whole point kind of Your Behind-the-Scenes BFF and how we help women is like building a career that supports your life. Because I think so often we grow up and like we get into careers, whether it's a different kind of business or it's teaching or it's, healthcare or corporate or whatever, it could be anything where your life ends up having to fit in with your work. And we really want to help women see that like you can actually have work that fits better with your life.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that a lot of times, I mean, through podcasting, and I've kind of taken an entrepreneurial turn since I've gotten into entrepreneurship, but seeing so many women start to make that change of
Mhm.
nothing else matters as much as my family does. And
Mhm.
that push and pull of like, well, we make a certain amount of money. And if I want to keep
Mhm.
the lifestyle I'm living, or if I want to, if I have that entrepreneurial ambition, or like you said,
Mhm.
competitiveness, I still want to do something,
Yeah.
but something that like allows you to cornerstone or pillar your family is
Yeah.
a, a, a change that I am loving being able to observe. I mean,
Mhm.
participate in, but also observe so many other moms be like, this isn't enough for me. And I, whatever that might be. And I want it to look different. I would love to know more about when you decided to do your VA business and then start creating courses and it got bigger. What were some of the things that felt like, yes, this is in alignment? And then what things started to come in that you were like, hang on, I gotta create a boundary around this, or I gotta do something
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. This is a great question. I mean, this is one that I'm constantly coming back to. And like, I think that's the important thing about alignment, right? Like you think about alignment in like your car, right? You have to get get your car aligned, get your tires aligned. I don't know.
Yeah, your
You have to
tires,
align
yeah.
something. Yeah. Obviously not a car expert. But like you have to go in and like get a tune up. Like it's not like you can go like get in alignment and then it's just good to go for forever and ever, right? Like we're constantly adjusting and having to make tweaks and like, it's just always kind of that push and pull like you said. And so one thing for me was social media, and that has always been something that I have battled because listen, Instagram changed my life. Like I would not have the business that I have today if it weren't for Instagram. I wouldn't have had my first business if it weren't for Instagram. I've met so many incredible women from Instagram. Whoever said don't talk to strangers on the internet was clearly wrong because that is how I've like connected with so many cool people. But there have been points in my life where it has drained me and it has been exhausting and constantly like feeling like I get sucked into it or that I'm putting it like as a priority in my business when it really doesn't need to be. And like just kind of this push and pull with it. And so that was something that in the beginning I was like, okay, I don't want to be on social media very much. Like I want to do the kind of the bare minimum. If I can get clients without social media, that's great. I can post here and there, like blah, blah, blah. But I naturally like to create content. And I enjoy having conversations and creating dialogue and educating. And one of the easiest ways to do that is through social media. And so I have been kind of trying to find what that sweet spot is in creating content and like what does feel aligned. And I think it also depends on the season, right? Like there's different seasons for different things. And so there's been seasons where I haven't been on social media very much. There's been seasons where I felt like I had more capacity for it. I'm actually in a season right now where I haven't had the capacity for it. And I actually really felt called to like lay it down for the month of January, which is January 21st as we're recording. And so I got like a week and a half left. And it's been so life-giving because I've been able to kind of figure out where I can spend my capacity elsewhere and like kind of reprioritizing things. And I think like the break's been good for that. And I'll go back to Instagram and I'm going to go back to it with a different outlook and like a different type of alignment, right? Like it's going to change depending on kind of where I'm at. And so I think that's been the biggest one is figuring out like in different seasons where that lands because it can be a great marketing tool. It's a free marketing tool. And it can also be something that is really draining, especially if you are spending too much time on it, which I definitely am guilty of. So I think that's probably one thing. And then I think another thing is really setting boundaries with clients. Because I'm in a service-based industry. I've had VA clients now for almost 4 years. I took 2025 off because we were moving and all this kind of stuff. And so I didn't work with clients in 2025. I reopened my books at the end of the year. And even just looking at like how I set up my business as a VA and then now how I treat my VA business, it's totally different. Whereas in the beginning, I was just happy to have clients. And so I was just like saying yes to everything or undervaluing myself and like undercharging. I would say that I wouldn't work on the weekends, but then I would end up working on the weekends or, whatever that looked like in the beginning. Now I have very hard and kind of strict, like, these are my work hours. This is like what communication looks like. It just looks different where I'm able to take care of my clients and take care of my people, but also again, have it support my life because my husband is back in law enforcement now and he works the night shift and like it just looks different all the time. And so, my hard cutoff, like when I pick my kids up from preschool, like I'm not opening my laptop again. And so it just, again, it has to like fit around my life. So yeah, I think like client boundaries have been a big one. And I think people are scared to set them. But then I think that when you have clients see you set and value that, then it actually inspires them to do the same. And I've never had a client like be offended by me saying like, hey, these are my work hours, or this is kind of what to expect with communication because I'm all in on taking care of them when that is, part of my job. But then when I'm like, my job is being a mom, then like they understand that and they respect that. And a lot of the people I work with are moms too, so they get it.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think there's also something to, again, about alignment, choosing clients that feel aligned with you. It's very easy in the beginning to be like, oh my God, I'll take everybody because you're excited to take clients. But I think you quickly live and learn that not everyone is for you and you're not for everyone. And so I think being able to trust your gut and intuition on like, maybe this isn't the right client for me. And like you said, being able to say, I don't think we're a right fit is hard. But I think in the long run, being able to be like, okay, I can give 100% of my energy to my client versus this client is sucking a lot of energy from me, I think is two totally different worlds.
Yeah. And I think it is true. In the beginning, it just looked so different in the beginning. And it's like, yeah, I wanted to take everyone and work with everyone. And like, I don't think there's a bad thing with that. Like, I don't think it's like bad. It's pretty like neutral because you learn a lot from that experience. Like if you're someone that's like, oh yeah, that's me. Like don't feel guilt or shame about it. Like we've all been there. And you learn so much from it. But now, as I'm taking clients on, I'm like, my prices are higher. So it brings in like a different type of person as well. Like they're not looking for the cheapest option. Because I'm not the cheapest option. And if they want someone that maybe has lower pricing, like I'm happy to refer them. And so I think that has a lot to do with it too. I think people underprice themselves a lot because they want to get the client. But in reality is like, it's just going to not make you enjoy the work if you're not getting paid like what you really deserve. And I think that comes again with experience. It comes with learning. Like I've been doing this, this business for 4 years. I've been in online business for 8 years. And I've learned so much over the course of that time. And I am grateful for that.
Yeah. So this time around, what does success look like for you? How has it changed from business number one to now your current business, becoming a mom and having a family? I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, I think I just it's interesting because I feel like a totally different person from business number one to business number two in so many different ways. And motherhood has a lot to do with that. I always say that finding yourself can feel a lot like losing yourself because you're shedding all of these parts of yourself that you don't, like we said, align with anymore, beliefs that you had. There's beliefs that I had back then that I'm I was a lunatic for even thinking that that was something that was true. And I think it's a beautiful thing. I mean, I was also, 24, 25, and now I'm 32. There's just such so much maturity that happens too. And so it's just so interesting. I feel like to me, success looks like peace. That's kind of been my theme for 2026 as well, is my word for the year is surrender, because I am a control freak and I am trying to release control. I'm also the type of person that feels like I need to fix everything and that I have to carry all these burdens that are not mine to carry. I'm an Enneagram 9. And so peace is something that I seek a lot in my life. And so I think success to me looks like peace, whether that's financial peace, whether it's, being able to have capacity and white space in my day to have those peaceful moments and it doesn't feel chaotic and a frenzy all the time that I naturally can get into because I am someone that has an ambition and wants to work really hard, and it can be easy to kind of fall down that rabbit hole. But I think I'm just learning that, it's not the $1 million business that I'm after. It's the $1 million feeling where I really feel at peace with my life and at peace with myself. And I think it's just making sure that things feel good instead of just look good. And it's hard. It's hard because there's a lot of things, online. It's you got to grow bigger, or, there's, once you hit 10K months, you got to be going up to 20, and then we got 50. And then people are talking about 100K months. I'm man, that's cool. If that's your goal, but it's just not mine anymore. I'm yeah, I think I'd be good at whatever the revenue number is, because that would allow us to live comfortably and invest and save and give and do all the things that we want to do. But I don't need this $1 million a year business that I once thought I did. And I think that feels really good. It takes the pressure off a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I totally identify with this more than you know. I've talked about it on previous podcast episodes, but I previously worked in nonprofit. So I was a fundraiser, and it was all data and numbers, and success looked like hitting or exceeding your number. And so I left nonprofit because I burned out very quickly and went into project management, which was a little bit different, but a bit of the same of we've hit this metric, we were hitting this number, here's the deadline, here's the timelines, managing other people. And I think for me, going into entrepreneurship, I was I'm done with that. The numbers matter, but not enough to shape what this business looks like. I have a small boutique digital marketing business where I work with small business owners who don't have the time in their day to figure out how to use Canva or to schedule out their social media, or that's just not their niche. And so I think for me, success looks very similar to peace, but it looks like autonomy and being able to choose what my days look like, choose when I take a day off, choose when I sit on the couch and watch Housewives for an hour to change my vibe up in my office. But it's so interesting to see yourself 5 or more years ago, and see what success looked like to you, or now it's I just on a Friday want to sit in my kids' playroom with some coffee, listen to some music, and just chill and not think about getting to my inbox or what I have coming up. And it's just so interesting to reflect back at what used to be important.
Yeah, I used to think the whole thing was freedom. And to me, it started as financial freedom because I was a teacher. So we didn't get paid a lot. And so I was financial freedom and all this stuff. And then it became time freedom. And now I feel to me, freedom looks like flexibility because like I love to work. Like my kids are in part-time childcare now. I grew my business during nap time and after bedtime, but now we have part-time preschool. That's my work time. I love to work. Like I said, I'm a high achiever. I have ambition. But if one of my kids are sick, I don't want to have to write sub plans at 4 a.m. with a sick baby on my lap and try to find a sub. Like that's not, and use one of my 3 sick days that I had as a teacher for the whole year, which is wild. And so I just think like what you said, like that autonomy of like being able to choose. Like I think there's this trope in online business where it's like you have to quit your job in order to be successful, or like you started your business to quit your job. And I don't think that's true. Like I think that you can do both, and I think you can choose both, and you can say, hey, I love my job. I have gals that have gone through our course, one in particular that I'm thinking about. She's an oncology nurse and she loves her job. She loves her career. And she started her business as a VA for the extra money and for the flexibility and to be able to cut down hours as a nurse so she can have more of that time to like volunteer in her kids' classroom and have more of that flexibility. And so she's able to have both. Like she gets to choose which direction she goes and if she wants to do both versus feeling like you have to, like feeling like you're trapped. I definitely felt like I was trapped when I first started feeling this like, oh, like I just went to school and got a master's degree in education. And like now like, this is it for the next 30 years. Like that's kind of how I felt in the beginning, but we're not. Like we can always choose and we can always pivot, and it's going to look different in different seasons. But that flexibility is something that I think some of us forget is possible and that you can like create in your life with your work.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, as we've been saying, social media is such a positive and negative in that, like, a
Yeah.
lot of us build our businesses on social media. A lot of us meet each other through social media.
Mm-hmm.
But it can be hard because you're seeing everyone seemingly do really well and
Yeah.
really blowing up or whatever it might be, where you're like, well, I'm not doing that. That's not what it looks like for me. My numbers are different. But I think, again, going back to whatever reasoning you decided to create your own thing is kind of what you have to come back to every time.
Yeah, it's not getting caught up in that like shiny object syndrome, because I think that's really easy to do in the online space, whether it's in business or not, because like
Yeah.
influencers can really convince us that we need like the next thing on Amazon. I'm so guilty of that.
Yeah.
Is like,
Yeah.
oh, like that next new thing, or like this will make my life easier. Like shiny object syndrome can look, both in our personal and our professional lives. But I think it's important to remember that a lot of social media is smoke and mirrors, and that like a lot of it isn't the whole picture. And as much as we try to be our most authentic, like I try so hard to be my most authentic self through my content, it's still 15-second stories or 1-minute stories or a 10-second reel. Like there's no way to get the full picture. And I also don't think we should get the full picture of people's lives through a screen. Like I think there's so much that is sacred and like shouldn't be shared online and like be public. And that's something I learned the hard way by sharing a lot of my life and a lot of what I was going through, and realizing like, well, maybe like I don't need to do that in order to connect with people. But I think it's important, even the most authentic people you see online, like you're still missing things that are going on behind the scenes. Like there's still stuff that you're not hearing about. And that's a good thing. You're like, none of us are entitled to that, but it's just never the whole picture ever.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that idea of like, you shouldn't know everything.
Mhm.
There should be some mystery behind the
Yeah.
influencers you follow. But yeah, it's so interesting you say authenticity, because that's something huge when I created my business, was that
Mhm.
we don't do your typical like trend marketing. We are
Yeah.
like, you should go to your Instagram page and someone should be able to know exactly who you are, what your services
Mhm.
are, what you do, get a vibe for who you are, and then go to your
Mhm.
website or chat with you. And like, we're not doing a ton of like trendy TikTok stuff.
Yeah.
Would I love to personally? Maybe. But that idea of authenticity and like coming to the table with who you are has been kind of a
Mhm.
challenge for me personally,
Yeah.
just because it's like I I want to be sharing a lot of myself, but it doesn't always feel authentic to do. And so
Yeah.
with the Mama Making podcast specifically, there was a specific time period I'm thinking of where I felt the pressure to be like, okay, you got to be on stories every day. You got to be sharing your life and what you're doing. People are coming for you and your guests and what you're up to, and it just didn't feel right for me. So I definitely identify with that idea of like, hey, just come as you are and what's comfortable for you, and people
Yeah.
will find you because they align
Yeah.
with that as well.
Yeah, it's so interesting because it's like forced authenticity is not authentic. And it's like
Right.
this crazy concept that like people are like, oh, you have to be transparent or authentic or whatever. And it's like, okay, but if that like isn't coming naturally or that doesn't feel like something I want to share, then like that's not authentic. Like it's like this, I don't know, like a double-edged sword kind of deal
Yeah.
versus just
Yeah.
like coming to the table with like, this is what's going on right now. Like, this is what I want to share. This is how I want to show up like in this moment. And like, it could change in a month from now. It could change tomorrow, like whatever it is. But yeah, that like forcing ourselves to show up a certain way because someone says that we need to do that isn't actually authentic, especially if it's not authentic to us and like doesn't feel good. Cause that's a surefire way to burn out is showing up without like it being true to yourself.
Yeah, which can be hard, especially in motherhood and business when you're like, okay, who am I? I feel like after each
Yeah.
kid you have or each big milestone, you're like, all right, who am I now? And so
Yep.
I think it can be tricky to figure that out. But I think that's like the amazing part of the journey, figuring out who
Mhm.
you are now and kind of allowing your business and your presence to match that.
Yeah, that's been something that I feel like I'm kind of going through right now is because I've always been the person that's grown the business during nap time or after bedtime and in the pockets of my day. And then in this last year, we've started like my kids got older. My kids stopped napping. Like I had to start getting more help. My oldest is going to kindergarten in August. And so it's like I'm already starting to feel that like, oh, like what is this next season look like and how do I show up in this next season because I'm not working in the pockets of my day anymore. I'm not working during nap time anymore. I'm lucky if my 3-year-old decides to take a nap when he's home. Like it just doesn't happen. And so it is interesting. It is every season looks different, but I think there's something really cool about that too, is because it's like, oh, well, now like what's possible because of this new season and how can I show up in this season to serve other people through the business and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's perfectly said. I love that. Anything else on kind of what you've learned through your journey so far?
Man, I feel like if we had enough time, I could yap about this forever.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's so many things that I've learned, but I think one of the biggest things, and we've touched on it, is like giving ourselves permission to pivot, just depending on the season that we're in. Like I said, I've had 2 businesses that have been very successful. I've had kind of little pivots like in between them and in them themselves. And I think people are so afraid of change sometimes or to pivot that they miss out on like what's possible on the other side. And to me, something that my mom always really like instilled in me, and I didn't listen for a long time. I was very like, if my plan A doesn't work, then like the world's going to end. Like I was very like, I can't possibly try something and see if I like it. Like I'm going to have to go all in like from the
Mhm.
beginning. But my mom was always like, it's okay to change your mind. Like it's okay to try something and change your mind. And I think about that now as a mom. I don't think I understood it as well before becoming a mom. I started to kind of practice it a little bit, like when I left teaching and started a business and kind of all that stuff. But then when I became a mom, I'm like, gosh, we tell our kids all the time to try something. We put them in sports to just like see if they're going to like it or get them in activities to see if they like take to it. And if they don't like it, like it's no big deal. Or, if they try something and they decide it's not for them, like cool. Like that helps us eliminate things that aren't for us. But then it's like we hit 18 and we just like decide that we can't ever try something new again. And that like whatever we decide, and this is maybe like the millennial conditioning where it's like we were told you had to decide what you wanted to be when you grew up and you could never change your mind and like that's it. And it's like actually there's so many things out there that we could try and like if it works out, like amazing. But you're not going to know if it does if you don't try. And so I think giving yourself permission to pivot is so important just in motherhood, in life, giving yourself permission to change your mind, right? Like I had said, there were so many things that I believed back then and then get new information. And I'm like, yeah, actually, like I don't think I believe that anymore. Like I'm going to change my mind on that. And I don't think there should be shame or guilt in that either. because as our life changes and as seasons change, like we should be allowed to change too. And we should be allowed to figure out the new dream or the new thing that we want to do. And if we aren't willing to try, then we're never going to know if that's for us or not. And I think that's been probably one of the biggest lessons that I've learned. And I'm really grateful for it because I know that like in 10 years, if I want to do something different or want to try something else, then I'm going to do it. And if it works out, great. If not, that's cool too. Like there's lessons in both.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it's just the evolution of self and life and business and how it all shifts together. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on. I've loved chatting with you about this topic. I think it's an important one. And I'm so glad you were here.
Thank you so much for having me. I know I love talking about this and this was so fun.
Yeah. Well, tell people where they can find you. Share a little about your podcast, website, social media, whatever you want to share.
Yeah. So I am on Instagram. Not right now, currently in January, but in February I'll be back. And it is at Your BFF Kate. And my podcast is the Virtual Assistant School podcast, where I do share all about how to use the skills you already have to make money from home as a virtual assistant. And then we also have our website, which is yourbtsbff.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This is amazing.
Of course. Thank you.
Time.